what are the common mistakes? Assuming that your cross-border sales are indicative of what the market would look like for you.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to 5 Minute Founders, the show where we pick the brains of actual founders for the strategies, growth hacks, and stories of how they built their own companies. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and my guest today is the president and co-founder of GoAvance, helping brands to expand into Mexico's e-commerce hassle-free. Ramiro Velasco, welcome to the show.
Matt, thank you so much for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Let's jump right in. Why don't you tell us, what is your business and what pain point does it solve for?
My business is GoAvance. We help brands come into the Latin American market. Pain point that we're really solving is the nightmare that the bureaucracy and sort of regulations and business abroad can be for primarily American brands. We do Europe, we do some other places, but primarily the cultural and the culture shock and sort of information void that exists when you're trying to sell cross-border is what we're trying to solve, and sort of make it easy, make it not only low cost investment, but low time investment, low risk across the board. Because I'm Mexican, I love Mexico, and that's what we're trying to sort of speed up.
Absolutely. And maybe you can detail for us, what are some of the most common mistakes that companies make, or maybe most common sort of obstacles that companies run into when they're trying to enter the Latin American e-commerce landscape?
So those are two different questions, and I love both of them. What are the common mistakes? Assuming that your cross-border sales are indicative of what the market would look like for you. Cross-border, we range anywhere from 4x to literally 20x in conversion rate, depending on the product, when we bring it in country. And that obviously comes with ranking and, more visibility and exponential growth. So ultimately looking at cross-border and saying, well, I sold 4 units and thinking, well, then it's not going to work. I think that's a very common mistake. As far as roadblocks, information void, like I mentioned earlier. Let's be honest, no one knows how to do this. You go, okay, I need a tax ID. Okay, how do I do this? Who do I talk to? Hey, this lawyer said one thing, this lawyer said another, this import guy wants to charge me 15% of all, and suddenly you go, you know what? I can't do it. I give up, whatever. So having someone that just goes, hey, I know how the region works. I know who to talk to. And I have trusted people that I just say, hey, yeah, this is my homie, be nice to him, is infinitely valuable when dealing cross-border.
We're talking about Mexico primarily, yes?
Yeah, right now, yeah.
So why do you think that there's so much sort of like mystery or like unknown surrounding, taking e-commerce into Mexico?
I'll say part of it is that rules for many people are optional, right? So they say, oh, well, this says we need this. And then someone else goes, well, you don't actually need it. And now both of you look bad because I don't know who to trust. The fact is there are ways around rules, around regulations. There are ways to, let's say, find loopholes. Optimize and corporate, we optimize the process, right? But what that leads to is just having a ton of misinformation and people just going, I'm not really sure what is real. And I think that's where a lot of this is. I mean, Amazon does things that are gray areas, and that's fine because gray areas are legal, right? But it's like, okay, now I'm lost. Now I'm not really sure what my first step is, and decision fatigue is very real, so.
Right. So you had been, correct me here, but I believe you had been working in agencies in Mexico when you sort of had this idea to start GoAvance. What hole did you see in the market? What sort of revealed this to you? What had you learned that made you think, I can be the person that sort of bridges this gap?
So I think one of the biggest things that I never realized how important it was to me was that I've lived all over the world. I have like all these ideas of like that I'm not smart. I just saw other people do them, right? And like that sort of gave me a different panorama. Right now, I hadn't realized before how much my shopping habits by being in Mexico have affected my career. I sort of looked at like last night, I was trying to buy a product and I was like, hey, these are all cross-border. Like this is one of my favorite brands. I make music, it was a music thing. It's one of my favorite brands. And then they're all cross-border by bad distributors. I went on LinkedIn and went, hey, I would love to work with you, right? Like, because I literally consume your product. So I think even from the beginning, it was, I'm here in Mexico, I can't get access to a bunch of this stuff. And you're looking at it and realizing the shopping experience is silly. as someone that was used to 2-day delivery, next day delivery his entire life and all these things, I went, something here just quite doesn't make sense. And I think that's where we jumped into this as a business model.
Very cool. So can you maybe walk us through some of your marketplace strategy, how you help brands sort of successfully enter new territories, maybe outlining some key areas that you assist in?
Totally, yeah. I have a tendency to talk a lot of operations, infrastructure, importing, logistics, warehousing. Sure, we have to do all of that. But what is fundamentally different, because that's what like any other business has to do anyway. Fundamentally, what is different, I think, right now, current landscape, 2025, let's have that conversation here in Mexico, is the idea for a lot of foreign brands is I'll come in, I'll put some cash into PPC, I'll see that flourish, and then I'll build some ranking. Mexico is still largely, shoppers were not largely looking for solutions on platform. But if I see a product on Instagram, if I see a product on TikTok, I'm very likely to convert because I haven't been sold all the garbage that has historically been sold to off-platform consumers, right? So what we found is, hey, listen, PPC is great. Hey, listen, images, SEO, all of this traditional stuff, it works, but it's not mind-blowing. Off-platform, we have to be on that. Off-platform is everything.
Yeah.
We are... We built out an influencer program where we're just like, hey, listen, we gotta be able to get eyes to the product from the outside, because that is where the Mexican consumer is. So we're knocking on doors basically on your phone from the inside of the screen going, hey, would you like to buy this? And I think that is something that a lot of foreign brands aren't used to when expanding.
Yeah, actually, can you unpack that for me a little bit? When you say influencer, are you talking about like social influencers that you're leveraging in content, or it made it seem like maybe you're talking about off-platform?
I'm talking off-platform almost entirely. The thing is that what we're finding is Amazon, Mercado Libre, and all the smaller marketplaces, just they have the eyes on them, but not enough to make an important, significant sort of like change to our clients' bottom line in the short term. Long term, absolutely, right? Like this is a 10-year bet where we know we're going to grow with the market 30% year over year, because this is what the next 10 years look like, because we saw it happen in the US, so that's sort of like a given. But it's like right now, how can we get ahead of the curve? Right now, how can we dominate the marketplace, dominate the category, dominate the search result? It really is, well, bring us people from outside that weren't here looking for a solution on Amazon, but we're willing to buy your product. So a lot of creator marketing, a lot of, we're doing little things like, hey, we're gonna work with you, we'll help you set up your affiliate link. Because like we're really far behind, and I need you to make money off this, so you're incentivized to sell my product. Okay, like let's work with you and sort of make that like, happen. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of figuring out, as you know, Mexican, I live here, figuring out where people are shopping, where people are finding their products, and going to them instead of hoping, well, hopefully they figure out that we're on Amazon.
Yeah, I was going to say, where are people shopping in Mexico? What differences are you seeing in terms of channels, placements, that kind of thing?
We see a pretty good, so there's some surprising statistics. Amazon, Mercado Libre are about the same size, within a 10% difference, but we can consider them the two big marketplaces. I see a lot more cross-border shopping on Shopify and, brands' e-commerce sites than I would have expected. And these conversations happen a lot where it's like, oh, well, we have several orders from Mexico, like consistently. And they go, huh, interesting. I would never, I'm sorry. Like if your Shopify tells me it'll get here in 6 days, I know it's going to get here in 60 days. I'm not going to do it. But people are generally going out of their way to find the product, maybe marginally better pricing, and buying on your Shopify website. In those cases, bringing you across the border is so useful because we're fulfilling an existing demand without having to create it. So that side is fantastic. On the other hand, what we're seeing a lot is Instagram shopping. I know for a fact I buy on Instagram, which kind of blows my mind. When Instagram shops came around, I was like, why would I ever use this? And then my favorite, boot brand was on, and I was like, oh, click, okay, amazing. Right? So like that is sort of like, it just feels a little bit more diverse.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more diverse, it's a little bit more, okay, I got to cover all my bases, but it's also, I got to catch everyone because the market is smaller. The distrust of marketplaces is there still. How can I just sort of get as much as I can,
Yeah. And then sort of circling back on the influencer strategy, and I'm sorry, I think that this is really sort of revealing my own ignorance in this area, but when you're talking about leveraging influencer strategy off platform, can you sort of detail more specifically what that means? In my experience, when I am using influencers, it's to create video content, it's all on social platforms, that kind of thing. Are you talking about that, or you're
That's
using
exactly
them
it.
somewhere else?
That's exactly it. So we'll take those videos and then we'll also put them on Amazon. We'll also put them on Mercado Libre. You know, like we'll use them. But what I want is your audience that I know likes it, or like is a good fit for my product to come to me. So no, I'm talking entirely off platform when I'm talking about this. So it's like Amazon. The primary difference I would say between Amazon Mexico and Amazon US, for example, is in Amazon Mexico there's a ton of shoppers and you're just trying to win them over your competition, right? In Mexico, there's less shoppers, a lot fewer shoppers. And it's rather, how can I get shoppers from outside and shovel them into Amazon? And that's I guess where the difference is for us. Or the culture shock. We come from a US background. So, you know, coming in and going, oh no, we need to grab people off platform. Okay. Was this fun conversation?
Yeah, you know, I've heard you talk before. You've sort of distilled kind of like a lot of the gap, I think, between taking the e-commerce brand from the States to Mexico, being cultural differences. I wonder if you can maybe sort of unpack that a little bit for me. You know, I've heard you kind of talk about like, you know, a lot more things are offline in Mexico, and, you know, maybe formality isn't always the most helpful sort of like approach, but can you sort of talk about some of those cultural differences and maybe how you guys sort of like help kind of like smooth that area out or make it easier for people?
I think a lot of the stuff, like you said, offline. Listen, I have a package stuck at customs right now. It's a nightmare. It's something that's a package stuck at customs from something that I bought personally.
Yeah.
Formally, someone is willing to import it and wants to charge me $500. I'm like, this is a $50 product. Like, just send it back. I'm good. But they're being very insistent that this is the only way. And this is DHL backing them, going, no, this really is the only way. I looked online, I found someone, and I called him. And he goes, hey, what's up? Like, not like, hello, good evening. He's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, hey, like, I'm trying to figure this out. He goes, oh yeah, don't listen to him. Tell them exactly this, and they'll send it to me. I'm like, okay, so like the official response. If I don't know any better, if like I'm literally just trusting what DHL is telling me, which clearly, like, because DHL with a partner and they clearly have some vested interest in taking my money. And I don't know how many thousands of people are doing this to. They just stonewall you. And then someone that knows will go, oh, dude, don't worry about it. This is easy. I'm going to send you the template. This is the email. They'll send it to me. I'll cross the border. I'll get it to you.
Right.
Okay. Like if I don't speak Spanish, how am I supposed to reach this guy? Right. If I don't speak Spanish and DHL, the authority, is telling me this is the only way, well, I guess I'll do it that way. I think this is such an important microcosm for, like, we're used to everything being in our language. We're used to speaking, like, whatever words are being said in the room. To assume that when I go somewhere else, I'll still speak local, whatever that is.
Right.
Because it's either language, it's dialect, it's local slang, whatever. Like, to assume I go somewhere else and I'm still local, I think is a huge mistake. And it leads to, straight monetary losses, right? Like, I just saved $500 with this guy. I was like, just send it over there. I think those are the sort of cultural shocks that we consistently, people will run into.
So how important is relationship building then to your business? It feels like, making a lot of those connections and probably keeping a lot of those connections can make a big impact on your clients.
Entirely. There's a reason. So we currently import through Laredo, right? We import through Laredo because we have someone that we fully trust. There's other ports. We could do San Diego, Tijuana. Sometimes we do Veracruz, but this for overseas, whatever. But we were like, wait, why don't you do these other ports? I'm like, because I don't know anyone there that I trust. Right? Like, this is what I think the biggest value of our business is, the network. Well, no, there's other things, but the network of people that we know to speak to that aren't gonna rip us off and are gonna do right by our clients. Yeah. Everyone has issues. I think it's very easy to come on this podcast and be like, oh, like everything's perfect. Probably everyone does that. Obviously, sometimes you have to call people out. Obviously, sometimes you go, dude, what the hell, that's been sitting there for, 3 weeks, it missed the last shipment, what are you doing? But the person that you can call out and say that to is hugely valuable, right? Rather than someone that you go, hey, this didn't arrive, and they go, oh, we'll check. So, yeah, hugely, like relationships are everything.
Are there any areas in the process that you can think of where it's like, this is a real pain point for people trying to enter into Mexico on their own? Maybe it's also an area that you have made a relationship or found some sort of like workaround, problem solve strategy to sort of help those companies.
God, where do I start, man? Where do I start? Tax ID, taxes in general, business entity opening, like all of these things are so silly. In the US, hey, you want a business entity? Sure, it'll take you a week. Here you go. In Mexico, it's like, well, we're gonna need apostilled, translated documents of everything that I've gotten asked tax returns, but generally it's like ID, proof of like certificate of your current information of your current business, like all these other things, stakeholder passports, like, and you go, really? Is that what I need to open a simple business? Yeah, it is. And then you have to go to like a physical appointment to get a tax ID, right? And then you have to like maybe know the right person to even get an appointment, because even that's a little bit, let's say, monetized, right?
Does everybody need to make the physical appointment? Is that something that you're helping on, being able to show up for those? I've heard you call yourself boots on the ground before. Is that sort of part of the business?
Yeah, it wasn't part of it, honestly. Like we have our distribution model, and that's our bread and butter. And we started talking to some people that are like, listen, I really need my own business entity. And we went, listen, we get it, we'll do it. And that's where being here, like, send me a power of attorney so I can sign in your name so you don't have to fly down. I don't know, it feels wrong, but it isn't. It feels like there's a mistake, something. There must be a better way. There isn't. We're a country, like, our economy is cash based. We're slowly digitizing. There's less. I mean, there's more and more every day, but we're less digital overall in the way we do things. I still fill out paper forms very often, right? And it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe having someone there that does it is nice. All of these forms are in Spanish, which makes it a little bit worse.
Right, of course. What about ad creative? What differences do you see in ad creative that performs in Mexico versus the States? Anything in messaging, approach, placements, concepts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, listen, I've been out of, let's call it, US social media or US ads for a while now. I'm very focused on Mexico, and all my consumption is Mexican.
Yeah.
But, from what I gather, we are very, very, very meme based. We really love our inserting current funny trends into content.
Sure.
In a way that I don't think I really saw in the US historically. The US feels a little bit more pristine, a little bit more scripted, a little bit more produced. In Mexico, we like, or what has the most engagement is like casual, funny. If you're not taking the brand very seriously, or the brand not taking itself very seriously, Mexico, I think, culturally, as just like hanging out, not business wise, we have a very strong sort of undermining culture, where if you come in and you try to be the big guy, everyone goes, "Oh, come on, dude!" Like, it's very much like we don't play to these traditional status sort of interactions.
Yeah.
And I think that shows in all of our media consumption and all of our ad consumption. And we see that the stuff that does well is someone that's not taking themselves too seriously, that isn't actively trying to sell you anything, but with a strong call to action, because guess what? We are very, very influential when it works. And listen, I love that you like my video. Also click on the link.
Right.
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 Yeah, that's what we consistently see. We run into things where we will make it creative and we'll send it over, and the client will go, "This is too casual." And we go, "This is what works. I mean, we can make you a like pristine one, and it's gonna do worse. We'll maybe test it and be like, there you go. Right? I'll charge you twice for 2 videos, sure." And then just really tell me I'm right. I love that. But
I hope that answer is actually really encouraging for any brands that might be listening to this, because in my experience, that's not a cultural difference. That's as a performance marketer in the United States, that is a conversation, a debate that I have had with most brands that I work with, right? Which is sort of like, relax it a little bit, let your ads feel more authentic, more relatable. A person talking straight to a phone for 30 seconds is probably going to be more effective in a lot of scenarios than, a person in a 30K shoot, in a really, on a set
100%.
somewhere,
100%. Put this 30K towards promoting the video.
So in that way, if you are a brand listening and maybe you already have a lot of really spectacular creative that's working well for you in the United States, then maybe you do need some of this like more logistical help to get into the Latin American market, and your ads will perform down there as well. Ramiro, just a couple more things here. Can you tell us at all about your own marketing efforts? How have you gone about attracting high profile clients? What channels have been most effective for you? That kind of thing.
You know what? We have a really strong for our own marketing. We have a really strong belief in providing value. It seems very obvious, right? But we do a lot of informative newsletters. We get a ridiculous amount of leads from that, where we're just saying even in places that we don't operate, like we sent out one about Ecuador because it was like, hey, this is happening. And it was like, do you work? No, we don't. We're just giving you info that we think is useful and interesting about Latin America. I subscribe to Morning Brew, which is a random. I don't expect anyone to know, but it's a pretty big newsletter. And it's like, why do I subscribe to it? And we had this conversation. Why do I subscribe to it? I'm not paying for anything for them. I'm just enjoying what they're telling me. And every morning with my cup of coffee, I read it religiously. It's like, okay, cool. Can we provide that value? And then when someone's interested, they come, right? There's LinkedIn work, there's obviously we do like email outreach and stuff like that. But really, when you give people things for free, when you give people things that they want, they'll come back and be like, hey man, yeah, let's do it.
When you talk about your newsletter, this is something that's going straight to their inbox, yeah?
Yeah.
Have there been any sort of like email capture strategies that you've found most effective for you in growing that list?
Yeah, for a year and a bit, I was doing monthly webinars, putting out, again, just more and more info. There's just an infinite amount of my face on the internet right now, which I'm not too comfortable with. But a lot of webinars where it was just like, hey, I'm not here. I'm not here to promote my business. This is more stuff that you need to know. Because it feels like, at least up until a couple months ago, maybe 6 months ago, the real sale was Mexico, not me.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm the only person that can do what I do right now. Well, no, not really, but close enough. What I want is you to be interested in selling here. Because it's like, hey, you sound great. What's the country like? And you go, okay, we have skipped a step. Let's start over, right? So a lot of this sort of work has been drumming up interest in Mexico as a potential marketplace. And then going into, we can make it easy, we can make it whatever. So webinars, which again feed the newsletter, I think that was really good. And then just coming out, hanging out with wonderful people like Matt.
Appreciate that. What kinds of companies, what kinds of products have you seen the most success with? Who's sort of like an ideal client for you right now?
So we aim for sellers that do anywhere between 5 to 20 million a year. It's the sweet spot for us. We find that, listen, you're doing more than 20 million a year, just build out a team, just do it. We're happy to help you set up, but you do you. Under 5, margins are generally tighter. There's a lot of growth potential in the US still. All right, we can do it, but we'll start smaller and we know that we're not gonna make a lot of money off this. We're just gonna grow with you, right? So 5 to 20, nothing. So we specifically can't do medicine, medical devices, all of that we stay away from. But supplements, baby products, electronics are crushing for us right now, just absolutely crushing for us. House, appliances in general are really good. Basically things that consumers want to buy, they want to buy quickly. I don't want to wait, a week for this, and I want this brand, and I want this quality, and I want, no private labels, no cheapest option on the market, because that's traditionally, guess what? If you're the cheapest option on the market, or if you're a private label, your manufacturer is already probably selling straight to consumer here in Mexico. Very likely with your brand name on it. So, So
Good
that's
to
it.
know.
That's where we're at. Yeah.
Excellent. And Ramiro, anywhere that people can find you, learn more about you, learn more about GoAvance, places
Yeah.
we can get in touch.
Yeah. If you want to chat, if you just want to be like, hey, like, what do you think? LinkedIn, if you want to hang out with me, just send a connection. We can chat. If you actually just want to book an appointment with me, goavance.com, GoAVANCE.com. Oh, nailed that one. That's my calendar on the on the contact us page. Probably not for very much longer, but anyone like, yeah, I'm there. Info GoVance, that's me. If you want to hang out, and yeah, anyway you reach me, I'm happy to either tell you, yeah, this could work, or no, this can't work.
Appreciate the candor there. Just one more thing. I ask everybody, would love to just hear your sort of your first thoughts on it. In your opinion, what constitutes a successful founder?
Ooh, that's a toughie. That's a toughie. It sounds silly, but we have this idea. I mean, I'm consistently running this. We have this idea, like, whatever we mostly care about is the thing that we think everyone else should be. So for me, I'm trying to focus on my discipline. You know what? Then I think if an ideal founder has to be really disciplined. Probably, but we do make up some of our weaknesses with some of our strengths, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know, what do I know about myself? I know that I work really fast when I'm engaged. I know that I work really fast when I'm medicated, which is fantastic. Shout out to Ritalin. And I know that I'm a great problem solver. I also know that I have issues with conflict, and I also know that, I'm a perpetual people pleaser, and those are negatives in a founder world, right? So I think an ideal founder is just someone that really understands themselves, understands weaknesses and strengths, and plays around them. What's my first hire? Someone that does the things that I'm bad at. And it's just,
Yep.
how many more things that I'm bad at can I get off my plate so I can do the things that I'm good at? And that's not going to be universal for everyone. So for me, the only real answer is someone that really understands themselves and can play to their strengths and try to cover their weaknesses.
I love it. Appreciate you taking us inside there. Ramiro, thank you so much for the time today.
Matt, thank you so much for having me. This is actually really, really nice. Tropical weather podcasting.
If you are listening and you are interested in exploding your own digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to subscribe for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.